poor man was promised paradise, riches without end, power land, a life so soft that kings would have wept to touch it. All he had to do was say 3 sentences, any 3 sentences he wished. By sunrise, he had said all 3, and he was poorer than he had been the night before. He spent the greatest fortune in the history of the world on a sausage, and he never even saw the wish that was sitting on the table the entire time. This story is old. Older than the country it comes from. They tell a version of it in France and in Sweden and in Germany and in England and in a dozen places besides. In every one of them, the names change and the ending does not. So let us call him what the old French tellers called him. Let us call him Blaise, a woodcutter, a poor one, the poorest man in a poor village. Blaise and his wife, we will call her Fanchon, lived in a single room with a dirt floor and a roof that let the rain in and a fire that was more smoke than heat. They were not lazy. Remember that. This is not a story about lazy people. Blaise rose before the sun and swung his axe until his hands split, and Fanchon mended and scrubbed and went hungry so that he could eat the larger share. And still, every night, they sat at a bare table and shared a heel of black bread and a little thin soup made of water and whatever the forest had grudgingly given them. And they went to bed, still hungry. On the night this story begins, there was no soup at all. There was only the bread, and it was the last of it. That night, there came a knock at the door. Now, no one knocks at a poor man's door after dark for any good reason. Blaise opened it carefully, expecting a taxman or a soldier or worse. But on the step stood a tiny man, no taller than the candle on the table, dressed all in green and gold, with a little pointed hat, and eyes that were far, far too old for so small a body. In the old French versions, he is a spirit of the wood. In the German, he is a forest fairy. In some, he is an angel. In one, and I rather like this one, he is the god Jupiter himself, walking the earth in disguise to see how mortals behave. When they think no one is watching, it does not matter which. What matters is what he said. Woodcutter, said the little man, I have walked a long road, and I am cold, and you are the 100th house I have come to tonight. The other 99 turned me away. Blaise looked back at his bare table, at the single crust of bread. That was meant to be his supper, and his wife's supper, and nothing else. Come in, said Blaise. It is not much, but what we have is yours. They shared the bread 3 ways now, where it had barely been enough for 2. Blaise gave the largest piece to the stranger. Fanchon poured him the last of the water, as though it were wine. And when the little man had eaten, he set down his crust, and he folded his small hands, and his old eyes shone in the firelight. You did not know me, he said, and you fed me anyway. You had nothing, and you gave me half of it. That is rarer than gold. And so, he said, I am going to give you something that has not been given to a mortal in 1,000 years. I am going to grant you 3 wishes. Blaise laughed. He thought it was a joke, a poor man's joke, the kind you tell at a bare table to make the hunger smaller. 3 wishes, the little man said again, and this time he did not smile. Anything you can name, riches, a palace, long life, crowns, kingdoms, whatever the 2 of you can imagine. You have 3 of them, and I cannot lie to you. My kind cannot lie. Every word I have spoken is true. But hear me, he said, and he raised 1 tiny finger. 3, only 3. When the 3rd is spoken, I am gone, and so is the gift. So choose them well. And then, between one blink and the next, the little man was not there. The crust he had not finished sat on the table. The chair he had sat in was empty and still warm. And Blaise and Fanchon sat alone in a poor hut, with the wealth of the whole world suddenly resting on the tips of their tongues. Now, stop here with me a moment, because this, right now, this exact moment is the most dangerous moment in the whole story. More dangerous than the leopard, more dangerous than the python, more dangerous than the python, more dangerous than any monster in any tale I have ever told you. This is the moment where 2 people who have nothing suddenly have everything and have not yet said anything stupid. Think of what they could ask for. a castle of white stone, a chest of gold that fills itself each morning, health for both of them until they are 100 years old, a son, a safe and gentle life, an end forever to the cold and the hunger and the fear. Any of it, all of it, it was theirs. All they had to do was say it carefully, slowly, with one whole night to think. And here is the cruel little truth at the heart of this old story. The danger was never the spirit. The danger was never the wishes. The danger was them, because the two of them sat down at that bare table. This poor, good, kind couple who had just been handed paradise. And the very first thing they did was begin to argue. They argued all night long, not cruelly, not at first. At first it was wonderful. A palace, said Fanchon. Why not a palace? And what would we do with a palace? Said Blaise, two peasants who have never owned two chairs that match. We would not know how to walk in it. We would sleep in the stables. Out of habit. Gold, then, said Fanchon. Endless gold, and the moment the village saw it, said Blaise, the lord would take it, or the thieves would take it, or the taxman would take it, and they would hang us for having had it at all. Then a son, said Fanchon, more quietly. I would wish for a son. And at that Blaise went quiet too, because that was the one they both truly wanted, and somehow that made it harder to say, not easier. And so it went, round and round. Every wish too big, every wish too dangerous, every wish somehow frightening, because a thing you want with your whole heart is a terrifying thing to hold in your hand when you only get to hold it once. And here is what no one tells you about a wish. A wish is not a gift. A wish is a weight. And the two of them, who had carried hunger and cold and grief their whole lives without complaint, found that they could not carry this. It was too light and too heavy. Both at once. The candle burned down to nothing. The fire sank to embers. And they had not chosen a single thing. By now it was nearly morning. They were exhausted. They were cold. They had argued so long that they had begun to hate the wishes, more than they had ever hated being poor. And this is the important part. They were hungry. They had given their last bread to the stranger. They had eaten nothing themselves. They had been awake all night, with empty stomachs, arguing about palaces they could not picture and gold they were afraid of. And Blaise, poor, tired, starving Blaise, leaned back in his chair, and he rubbed his aching eyes, and from the very bottom of his empty belly, without thinking, without meaning anything by it at all, he said the words. That would damn them, he said. Oh, I am so hungry. I wish I had a good sausage to eat right now. And there was a soft sound. A small sound, a sort of thump, and on the bare table in front of them both, steaming gently in the grey dawn light, there appeared a sausage, a very fine sausage, a long, fat, glistening, beautifully spiced sausage. The finest sausage either of them had ever seen. It smelled like heaven, and the two of them stared at it. And for one whole terrible silent moment neither of them moved, because they both understood at exactly the same instant precisely what had just happened. "You fool!" screamed Fanchon. "You unbelievable fool!" And who could blame her? They had been given the wealth of the world, 3 wishes. Castles and crowns and kingdoms and long sweet lives, and her husband had spent one of them 1 full third of paradise on a sausage. "We could have had anything," she cried, "anything in the world. And you wished for a piece of meat. You wished for a sausage. I wish that sausage was stuck to the end of your stupid nose." And there was a soft sound, a small sound, a sort of thump. Oh, no. The sausage leapt up off the plate. It flew through the air, and it fastened itself to the very end of Blaise's nose tight. Fast, as though it had grown there, as though it had always been part of him. Blaise grabbed it with both hands. And pulled, it did not move. Fanchon grabbed it, and pulled, it did not move. They both pulled together, bracing their feet against the table, until Blaise howled with pain, and the sausage did not move. It was a wished thing, and a wished thing does not come off for ordinary hands. And now, look at them. 2 wishes gone. one left, and a great fat sausage hanging off the end of a weeping man's nose. And here, my friends, is where the story does something very, very cruel and very, very true, because they had one wish left. One. And think for just a moment of what that last wish could still have been. It could have been, I wish to be rich, and the sausage would still be on his nose. But they would have been rich in a palace, with servants to look politely away. It could have been, I wish for a kingdom, and he would have ruled it, sausage and all, a strange king. But a king. One wish was still left. The third, the last, and it could have made every promise the little man had spoken come true after all. Riches without end, power land. A life so soft that kings would have wept to touch it. It was all still there. It was sitting right in front of them, but there was a sausage on Blaise's nose, and he could not bear it. He could not walk through the world like this. He could not be a rich man with a sausage for a nose. He could not be a king with a sausage for a nose. He looked at his wife, and his wife could not look at him without weeping, half from laughing, half from grief. And the two of them, who could have asked? For the moon used the last wish in the world, the final third, of paradise, to say together in two small tired voices, we wish the sausage off his nose. Thump, and it was gone. And there they sat, in the cold grey light of morning, in their poor hut on their dirt floor, under their leaking roof, no richer than the night before, no warmer, no safer. 3 wishes, 3, the wealth of the whole world, handed to 2 good people who had earned it, with 1 act of kindness to a stranger in the dark. And what did they have to show for it? In the end, a bare table, an empty plate, and a faint, fading, heart-breaking smell of sausage in the cold morning air. They were exactly where they had begun. Number, that is not quite true. They were a little hungrier than they had begun, because, you remember, they never did eat the sausage. People have laughed at this story for 1,000 years, at the fool who wished for a sausage, at the wife who wished it onto his nose, at the pair of them throwing away paradise, one stupid sentence at a time. And it is funny. It is meant to be funny. But the old tellers did not tell it only to make you laugh. They told it to ask you a quiet question. And here it is. You think you would never do it. You think, if it were me, I would have been careful. I would have chosen wisely. I would not have wasted it on a sausage. But every single day, friend, you are handed wishes. Hours, words, the chance to say the thing to the person before it is too late to say it. Small fortunes handed to you in the dark by a stranger you do not recognize, who is only your own one life in disguise. And how do we spend them? On the sausage, on the small angry wish, on the argument that does not matter, on getting the sausage off the nose instead of asking for the thing we truly wanted the whole time. The wish that could have unmade their whole miserable life was sitting on the table. From the very first moment, it was always there. They just never picked it up. Be careful, friend. Be careful what you waste your wishes on. If you want more parables from the world's storytellers, sacred and secular, from every continent, subscribe. Every one of them is a wish someone once wasted or saved so that you would not have to.